Hello, my name is Candy Block. I'm the founder of Right Hearted Weddings, and this is our podcast where we talk about wedding planning, wedding traditions, and wedding trends, as well as relationship and wellness advice. Now, I try to keep these very short and sweet. In other episodes, I've said 10 minutes or less. I'm not always the greatest at sticking to 10 minutes, so from now on, I'm just going to say short and sweet. And this one is a little bit different because I'm actually just talking about one topic, and that is the difference between elopements, micro weddings, intimate weddings, surprise weddings, pop-up weddings. So let's get right to it, because this one, there really is quite a bit to cover. So the first question I usually get from couples is, are these all actually the same thing? And these are just different fancy terms that we've made up in the wedding industry. And the answer is no, there is actually a difference between all of them. So let's break that down. There are some similarities and then some distinct differences. So let's start with elopements. Now, this is really where it all began. Usually when you think of an elopement, you hear somebody say we eloped or we're going to elope, you either think of Vegas or you think of somebody just going to the courthouse. So this is usually just you and your partner. You can either bring a couple of friends as witnesses or you just find witnesses on the spot. But it really is just very, very small and simple. Now, in the past few years, and this was even pre-COVID, the trend that was gaining popularity are adventure elopements. Now, my background is in the Seattle area in the Pacific Northwest, currently based in Reno. So when I say popular, this is very, very popular along the West Coast and really anywhere that has a lot of these like outdoorsy types of couples, because usually adventure elopement means you are like hiking up a mountain in your wedding dress, finding these like beautiful vistas, or you're doing something really adventurous to kind of get a new spin on this whole elopement idea. Like it doesn't have to just be the courthouse or like, kind of these really simple locations. You can have a lot of fun with it. So that's really an elopement, but even if you're doing an adventure elopement, they tend to be just you and your partner and a couple of witnesses, and that's about it. That actually leads into a micro wedding though. And micro wedding does have a few terms. You might hear them called tiny weddings or intimate weddings or just small weddings. You'll see varying kind of size restrictions if you search for this online. Some people say it's 20 people, some people say 30, 40. For the purposes here, I'm going to say anything less than 50 guests. You could term a micro wedding. And again, a lot of those other terms that I use, like intimate wedding or small wedding, can be interchangeable here. This is, pretty straightforward. You're still doing a full wedding day. Your guest count is just smaller. So the average, wedding in the United States is about 120 guests when all is said and done. Sometimes people are inviting more, but when all of your RSVPs come back in, you land around 120 to 150. So having fewer than 50 guests, you really are making an intentional choice to have a smaller wedding, but you're still planning a full wedding day. So you're still having the ceremony, cocktail hour, reception, dancing, just on a smaller scale. So now let's talk about the pop-up wedding. This has become very popular because of COVID, but I really like to think of a pop-up wedding as the perfect merging of an elopement and a micro wedding. So you're getting the ease of planning that comes with elopements, but you're still overlapping that with kind of the size of a micro wedding. So usually pop-up weddings are more than just the couple and their witnesses. So usually you are including some, friends and family and a few more guests, but you're usually not going into like a really large scale wedding either. So you're probably still under the 50 guest count kind of limit there. So you might be thinking, what do you mean by ease of planning? Well, similar to an elopement where you're making the choice to go and get married at the courthouse or go on a mountaintop and get married. There's really no planning there. For a pop-up wedding, there's also very, very limited amount of planning. So usually you're actually hiring a group of vendors that have created some kind of package that you're choosing. And then they come in, they execute. And because all of the vendors are really think of it as almost like a copy and paste type of wedding package where all of the vendors know exactly what they're contributing. There might be a few variables that you can choose from, so they can, still tweak it a little bit to make it unique for you. But for the most part, it's really easy for vendors to come in, execute, either, make their deliverables, set it up, coordinate it. So it feels very effortless, like the wedding just popped up out of nowhere. So that's kind of where the term came from. Now, again, these have become really popular because of COVID. The first reason is because a lot of couples have chosen to postpone the big wedding, the big celebration to 2021. But if you still want to get married this year, a pop-up wedding is a great way to still have a celebration and to still have your ceremony without the headache of a lot of planning. So it really is a very streamlined process. And then they're also becoming really popular, and you're seeing them online so much more because vendors are teaming up. And this is really a way for vendors to help each other through this pandemic. Think about it this way. If you are just having an elopement on your own, you may not think to hire a bakery to, provide cupcakes or a small cake, or you may not take the time to find a florist to make you a bridal bouquet. But if you find this package online that automatically has all of those things, it's really easy, streamlined, simple, you book the whole thing, then all of those vendors now get that business. And so this is really a way for vendors to help each other out, to make sure that even as couples are downsizing, even as they're really simplifying their wedding ceremonies in 2020, that everyone is still getting bookings and still getting business from this. So again, that's why pop-up weddings, this term, this idea has really become popular right now. And then finally, we have the surprise wedding. Now, this really differs from all the others in that your intentions while planning are different. So with an elopement, your friends and family may know that you're eloping and they're not included for one reason or another, or they may not know and you just tell them afterwards. With a micro wedding or an intimate wedding, people usually know about all of your plans. They know what your wedding date is while you're putting it together. And then, whether they're included or not in your guest count is totally up to you. With a surprise wedding, you are intentionally keeping all of your wedding plans a secret from everyone. So you and your partner are putting this together with the goal of surprising everyone. So really you can think about this as like a surprise birthday party, but instead of just surprising one person, you're surprising everybody. So usually you'll have some kind of like fake reason for people to gather. And I mean, I say fake, but you could use like a holiday. So maybe it's a Christmas party or a New Year's Eve party, which are legitimate holidays, clearly not fake, but you're kind of using that reason for gathering to actually just get all of your guests in the same place. And it could really just be as simple as like a summer barbecue. You can decide that. And then when you're there, you surprise all of your guests by telling them that you are getting married right then and there on the spot. And so you've created all of those plans. You and your partner know exactly what's going on, but nobody else does. Now, there are definitely pros and cons to this, and we could talk about that in a completely different episode. But just know that the difference between a surprise wedding versus a pop-up wedding, sometimes people get those confused, thinking that like a pop-up is the surprise, but it's really not. A pop-up wedding is still pretty intentional. Surprise wedding is just very different. You're trying to keep it a secret. And surprise weddings are not limited in size at all. I mean, I've seen surprise weddings where there are still hundreds of people there. And then also, smaller surprise parties where maybe there's only 20 or 30 people. So the size really has no impact in a surprise wedding. So those are the main, terms that you're probably seeing right now, especially as we're seeing the shift to smaller weddings due to CDC guidelines and state guidelines. I hope that's just been helpful. I would say overall, don't get too hung up on the terminology. If you have a 10-person wedding and you want to call it an elopement, by all means, call it an elopement. If you want to call it a micro wedding, by all means, call it a micro wedding. I would say really the surprise wedding is the one that's the most unique and we see the least amount of overlap in all of those. But ultimately it's up to you. I think this can actually just be really helpful so that way as you're searching online or as you're talking to your vendors, you know that you're on the same page when these types of terms come up. And then again, especially, as you're searching for wedding ideas and wedding planning help right now, you can use some of these terms in your search. So you can search elopement photographers, or you can search, pop-up weddings in Portland, or, that sort of thing, just to kind of help you find exactly what you're looking for. So thank you so much for tuning in today. Again, I know this one's a little bit different because we're really just doing a deep dive here, but I just know there's so much to this. I wanted to give you the information without it feeling too rushed. Please like, subscribe, comment, and share on our channels. We really appreciate when you do that. And then if you are still looking for wedding planning help, you can download our free app. It's called Right Hearted Weddings. It's available on the App Store and Google Play. You'll swipe through images and then we match you to really talented wedding vendors in your area that align with your style and what you're looking for. So it's a really fun way to plan right now. You can do it from home. You can connect with your partner on the app, and it's just really fun. So go ahead and download that. Let us know what you think, and I will see you guys next week. Thanks. Bye.